Joining me now is House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, we saw you earlier tonight. Chad Pergram told us that you all are in for now a long night there. Your thoughts on how this will unfold and separating legitimate election concerns from the concerns about what happened today?
It's going to be a little more difficult with what happened today. And I will tell you, what happened today was not right. It was un-American. And to me, it was the worst of America if you saw that. But what's going to happen right now is going to be the very best. We're going to go through with the Constitution. We're going to do the work that we have to get done. We're going to show that a mob cannot stop us in this process. And it's only right. I mean, and you have to understand with your viewers, this is not the first time either side has brought up after an election about voter integrity. In 2005, you heard Nancy Pelosi talk about it, said it was the best form of democracy America was going to watch, and others. And they brought this up with every Republican in modern history that's been elected president.
But Congressman, I have a quick question for you. We played that sound last night, and you're 100% correct about that. The hypocrisy of the Democrats, like they always accept the results of an election, is just, it's galling. Yeah. But how does this happen, Congressman, that you have, however many it was, it looked maybe like 36 people. How do they manage to bust through, get into the U.S. Capitol when you have the vice president, the House leadership, the Senate leadership, everybody's there? How does that happen after 9/11?
It was more than 36. I watched it because of where my office sits, right by the chambers. They first overtook on the west side where the president gets sworn in. Then they overtook on the east side where they had barriers. And then they rushed up the stairs. And you talk about people in these crowds that had helmets and they had ropes. They started scaling the building. People came here to do some damage. I don't know who they're with, but they came here to do some damage. What we watched, and they overran the Capitol Police in many areas. That was a real problem. And when we're sitting in the chambers, people had to get locked in. There's a number of members that stood and defended the chambers that moved barriers in front of the door. Mark Wayne Mullen, Troy Nehls, Pat Fallon. It was Republicans and Democrats alike to protect within there. This, when you sit back and look, we got FBI running through here. It's part like a crime scene because whoever is stormed inside our offices and ramaged different parts, they need to be prosecuted. That's wrong. That's not who we are as America.
No,
it's a sad day.
It's disgraceful. And again, I want to ask a question. I don't care if it's 36 or 200. How are they allowed to get into the U.S. Capitol after 9/11 when we spent hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars fortifying the Capitol? We got barricades, we got ID checks, but we knew this big crowd was coming, right? We knew they were coming. We knew, whether Antifa was in there or not, we'll find out more. But we know that we're sitting on a powder keg right now. So it's stunning to me that as much happened as it did. And we love the police and we support them, as you know.
Yes, and what they did was amazing. But you watched them break windows. You watched them scale buildings, something that we haven't seen before. They did have barriers further away. There'll be a review in the process and to make sure this never happens again. But from one standpoint, these individuals should never try to have done this as well.
Oh,
that's why the difference.
Of course not.
We'll continue to do our work in here and not let the mob be able to win the day. We will show the Constitution and democracy works, and we will bring up the issues about voter integrity, and we will be stronger in the end.
I know you tried to reach out to the president today. Did you have a meaningful conversation with him?
As this Capitol was being overrun, I called the president and I talked to the president. I explained to him what was going on right now, and I asked him to go and speak to the American public, speak to these individuals, and tell them to stop. I know he put a tweet out right then, and then he went a short time later to do a video. I talked to the vice president, who was here at the time as well, to be able to bring the National Guard in, because as you say, we had people scaling in businesses. That there was shooting going on. There were bombs that were put, small ones that were put around IEDs around different parts by the Capitol and by other buildings outside political buildings. So we were able to get when I was talking to the vice president, he called in to have the National Guard come in here because we had to be able to clean this and take the building back.
And Congressman, what can you say to Americans tonight? Well, of all political stripes, but you're a Republican. Those Republicans who feel like this election wasn't fair, that they're being unfairly, lumped in with the people who did this today, and they're really demoralized. I have my own message later in the show, but what's your message to them?
Well, they shouldn't feel lumped in. Just as this has gone on, we watched what happened to our cities, to our streets this summer. I condemn that, and I condemn this as well. I believe in the rule of law. That's what runs this nation, law. And from my perspective, what I see going forward, we need to solve this election integrity issue. You cannot bring people together if they do not trust what is going on in elections and others. And this hasn't started today. Back in 1993, they voted on voter registration and integrity. They're supposed to clean up these rolls. So when you have a pandemic and they send ballots out to everybody, if one person's making the decision, that's not how it's supposed to work. The law says the legislature is supposed to make these decisions. These are questions that you should be able to raise inside our chambers. That's where debate takes place. That's where it should take place. That's where the country should be able to watch us. But for all your viewers, there's also a responsibility for all of us as Americans. Let's stop back and think for a moment. What did you say on social media? Can you disagree with somebody and still respect them? Respect their opinion, even if it's different. I think we've risen this question too high to too many people.
Congressman, and finally, should the president, should you urge the president to attend the inauguration of Joe Biden? Would you?
Well, I think after today, I think from an aspect of going forward, I think what's best for this nation is to unite. And any example that we can show uniting and a smooth transfer of power is what sets us apart from the rest of the world. That's a positive experience. And I don't know within 2 weeks if that can happen. It should.
Well, I think attending an inauguration is something that most Americans expect, even when you disagree vehemently with the outcome. Congressman, thank you so much. Thanks for being here tonight.